Hey everyone, it is the first part of our series about Initia, which we're starting with a very simple overview. Hopefully, we can get it done in just a few minutes. So let's go. Initia, their own header sequence is a network for interwoven rollups, which basically means that they have a layer one, which connects to all kinds of rollups that are layer twos on top of Initia, and they build out an entire infrastructure stack to support this. And that's why they call it interwoven, because all of these rollups can work together and they're part of the same ecosystem. Uh, in many ways, similar to Ethereum. So let's dive in. Um, you can look at the stack as if you have a layer one, something like Ethereum, which acts as the first part, and then people can build rollups on top of that. So you can have one, you can have another rollup, and all of them are connected to the same base layer, just as if it was Ethereum, and that's basically how it works. And this base layer is called Initia. It has a token. It has the init token, and it's a Cosmos SDK chain. So this is init Initia, and it's a Cosmos SDK chain. And then all of the rollups on top of these are called MINITIAS. And these are also Cosmos SDK chains. But they don't necessarily share the same problems or things that current Cosmos chains have, because they're a lot more feature complete and very customizable. So the Initia base layer is connected through IBC. It's connected through layer 0. It has all of these features. It has an oracle, but we'll dive into that later. And then the MINITIAS can actually choose sort of how they work. So they can choose any VM they want, whether it's Move, EVM, or WASM, and maybe later even Solana VM if they want that. They can choose a sequencer, which they can be that themselves, or they can ask someone else to do that. And they choose a data availability layer. For now, that's going to be Celestia, because it's by far the most used and probably the cheapest as well, and most integrated with the Cosmos SDK, so it makes sense. But over time, these options will get more and more for these MINITIAS. And then they can change anything about the Cosmos SDK stack they want. But they're an optimistic rollup, meaning that it will take some time. Whenever you bridge in, it's instant, but the sequencer itself pushes their updates to the Initia chain, and every time it pushes updates to the Initia chain, there needs to be a dispute period of a few days for people to potentially check any mistakes made by the sequencer. And this is very similar to how Arbitrum works, for example, on Ethereum. But there's many other things that make this special, and that's what we're diving in right now. So remember, you have a layer one, which is a Cosmos SDK chain with comma BFT, and then there's layer twos on top of that, which are basically app chains that people can use separately. In some sense, similar to like Dimension or Saga or even Ethereum itself. But how is this entire ecosystem different? Well, it is very much because of all of the things that are inside of the Initia L1, and that makes it special. So one of these features is the Initia Dex, and the Initia Dex basically allows any rollup that has a token as well to have this token be on Initia, paired with init. And some of these pairs, like for example init USDC, or I don't know, init milk, which would be the token for Milky Way, which is a MINITIA, so a layer 2 on top of Initia. These tokens are not just inside the DEX, they're not just LP tokens, balancer style LP tokens, which you can farm off, but you can also stake them self. So instead of just staking the token, you can stake the LP token. So let's say I have some USDC laying around and I have some Initia laying around. I can put it in a pool, which is init USDC, and I don't know, maybe it's like 80-20. And then I can go to governance of the Initia chain and basically ask, hey, can you support this for staking? And then the chain is probably going to answer, or whether they like the token or they think it's a fair pool. And if the protocol says yes, then suddenly you can now stake your assets. So the Initia L1 is actually being supported by these tokens, meaning that the liquidity of init gets better over time as people contribute this to staking. And it also means that voting power is not only owned by init holders, so the main holders and the main stakers, but also held by is also supposed to go to people that actually contribute to the ecosystem more broadly by providing liquidity. And this was, you can see a similar system in Chain, but it also exists in, well, Balancer itself, I think, that is in their governance approach. And there's other DeFi protocols where you can stake LP tokens like this. So the liquidity on Initia is very much enshrined, which is why they call it enshrined liquidity. And any of the Initia L2s can trade their tokens on this DEX and basically integrate within the entire ecosystem. And a second feature of this DEX, and that may be the most important part of Initia, and we'll dive into this in very much in a lot of detail in a later video, is basically their MinitSwap feature. It's a separate swap feature within the DEX. So if you have a swap, you can basically choose, okay, am I going to put it towards, well, MinitSwap in this case, or am I going to put it towards the enshrined liquidity DEX? That's how you can view it. And the MinitSwap module is specifically intended to help with the bridging issues we see with optimistic rollups. So normally, if you have a base layer like Ethereum and you want to bridge to, I don't know, the other L2, which is Arbitrum, you can bridge into it instantly. Like if you go from ETH to Arbitrum, it's 1-to-1. So you can deploy your ETH, it's instant. But as soon as you want to go back from here to here, you have to wait 7 days. And why do you have to wait 7 days? It's this dispute period. Basically, the Arbitrum blockchain is built by something that's called a sequencer. It's owned by just a few people. And in order to make sure that these people are not lying and not accidentally stealing funds, you need to take some time before the ETH layer 1 is actually allowed to verify or like say, yes, I agree with the state of Arbitrum. It has been enough days where I don't think anything malicious has happened. And like we have 7 days for people to commit proofs basically that Arbitrum was lying. So nobody committed any proofs that Arbitrum was lying, so your transaction is valid. So after 7 days, you get your ETH back. But whenever that happens, like what if you want to bridge to a different L2, like, I don't know, Fractal or something, you want to deploy some assets between those, you basically have to find an option to go directly from Arbitrum to Fractal using alternative bridges like layer 0 or Hyperlane or something like that. Because if you want to go through ETH, you have to wait 7 days to get in and then have to bridge into Fractal, which costs gas twice and it's very expensive. So the problem with going directly is that the liquidity is unknown, and it also means that you don't know which asset you have, right? Like USDC on Arbitrum might be different than USDC on Fractal. So this is where MinitSwap comes in. So if we look at this design, you can basically see that instead of the 7 days withdrawal period, they have the IBC bridge, which will allow basically instant withdrawal. So if we change this name to Milky Way, which is one of the MINITIAS, and we can use, for example, Tucano, which is one of the other MINITIAS. No longer takes it can take 7 days, but there's also an instant option, which is in MinitSwap. So this is 1 minute, and this instant swap, this goes through a separate type of LP pool, which is on the initial layer 1. So there's LP pools. Basically, people stake in it. Into this LP pool, they only have to stake in it. Wait, I have to reverse this arrow. They only stake in it, and this is used by MinitSwap to basically allow people to withdraw and then send it to another asset. Which means that if as soon as I want to go to another L2 on Initia, it only takes me 2 minutes in total because this is another 1 minute. So now the L2s are actually super composable, and that's what MinitSwap allows. And we go into depth on how this works exactly later, but it basically utilizes IBC to bridge the assets back to Initia, and then they are allowed to swap here for a very favorable rate. So it's never exactly 1-to-1. If you want 1-to-1, you have to withdraw at the 7-day period, but you get a very close amount, and that's what MinitSwap allows. And this feature ties all of the L2s together, which is super important. Then there is a second feature, which is highly talked about, or like very, very much interesting for all of the people that are part of the ecosystem. It's called the VIP system. And VIP is another way to basically integrate the L2s with the L1, because that's what Ethereum and other systems are missing, is that the L2s, although they get security from the L1, they're not super intertwined. Like it's hard to have applications on top of multiple that combine well. So what does VIP do? The vested interest program basically allows init stakers and init holders to distribute rewards to the L2s. And these rewards that go to the L2s, they are distributed over separate metrics through a weight pool. So basically they go through all of the different MINITIAS, like they go to Milky Way and they go to Tucano and so forth. And each of these L2s, they can choose what kind of metric they want to support. So if Initia governance sends rewards to Milky Way might say, okay, I want to incentivize people to stake, restake our Milk Init token. Milk Init is their LSD, and if you restake Milk Init to another L2, then you get rewards from this program. So restakers of Milk Init now get Init rewards, and this comes. So they get Init rewards, and that comes from the L2, which is from the initial governance system. And this Init, they can then again, of course, stake, basically bring it back to the first part of the equation, and then over time, they can vote for other rewards and so forth. So the users are in control of who in the ecosystem is earning rewards, and then some of these rewards also go to the creators of the L2s. Basically meaning that if there was a lot of activity on your L2, you get more rewards from the base program. So both developers and users are, they gather vested interest by using and developing on Initia. And this program hopefully makes Init the main money token of the entire ecosystem. So the users and the developers decide together to distribute these rewards over the entire ecosystem. And then lastly, which I think is maybe the most important part, and that's why already 9 applications or 9 MINITIAs have decided to develop on Initia, is that their ecosystem is very feature complete. Normally, if you have to create a Cosmos SDK chain, you have to get validators. That's the first thing. Then if you are a DeFi application, you also have to create, an Oracle. Then you have to get a bridge, so that people can bridge in ETH and other assets, because that's not possible through IBC. And you have to get Explorer support. So you have to pay Minscan or other like Saletone or other explorers like that, and so forth and so forth. You have to get connected to Noble, get USDT. So Initia basically solves this by allowing any module or any integration that works on the Initia L1 also work on the MINITIA L2s. So because both the L1 and the L2, as we've seen here, they are both Cosmos SDK chains. If they find a module that plugs into Initia L1, the same module or the same feature would also be allowed to be able to plug into the MINITIAs, or they can even route it through Initia by using IBC. So all of these MINITIAs get all of these features out of the box. They get a layer 0 integration, basically allowing them to connect to the entire Omnichain ecosystem, whether it be Blast or Fractal or Solana or stuff like that. It integrates Kado, which is like a money onboarding system. It integrates the Skip Oracle. So by default, there is an Oracle that supports basically any chain. It's made by Skip, which are great teams, and it's called Connect, Skip Connect. Which is an Oracle that was run by the validators of the Initia ecosystem, and by definition, so part of the MINITIAs. So there is a MINITIA, for example, which is called Blackwing, and Blackwing is an intent-based layer 2 that on Initia that basically allows people to do leverage trading on even the smallest of coins, as long as you have a Uniswap style V3 position. They can put that, they can create a leverage position from that. And they are a big user of the Skip Oracle, for example, because they have to connect to Solana and to other chains to basically grab that data and work that through that. But they can instantly do that with the security of being a main chain. So that's what makes Initia so special. It's an integrated ecosystem with high throughput L2s, right? Like Cosmos SDK chains have 10,000 plus TPS and half a second block times. If you want to just look at Say and other ecosystems, they can grab any VM, whether it's Move, EVM, or WASM, which are by far the most used. They can implement extra modules if they want to, and like change their own Cosmos SDK chain, so they have all the flexibility, but they can also just do everything smart contract based. And then they don't have the burden of grabbing a validator set, finding liquidity, figuring out how to do the dispute period for optimistic bridging. They don't have to necessarily incentivize much of their users because they can grab some of the incentives that come from the L1 and redistribute those and also profit from that themselves. And they have all of these tools ready and available for them to build an application. And this is why Initia is noted down as a network for interwoven rollups. It's basically simple for people to develop L2s, and they're integrated by default, making the entire ecosystem basically feel monolithic, even though it's modular. And that's the power of it. And we'll dive into all of these separate segments in videos later down. So yeah, feel free to go to our website, check out Initia, or go to the initial website itself. They had an awesome testnet program, which is now closed, but you can still utilize anything on top of it. So go check out Initia. Follow the guys on Twitter called Zon and Stan are the founders, and there's many other great people in there as well. And then we'll see you in the next one.